Hi, I'm Christy with Homeschooling in Progress. Are you wanting to try to incorporate art more into your homeschool day? Well, in this video, I'm going to share with you some ideas on how you can include art into your homeschool day very easily. Now, I found the very best way to include art in your day is to include it in your morning basket. If you're not familiar with a morning basket, it's basically just a time of the day that you gather all of your children together to learn, from your littlest up to your oldest. And art is the perfect subject to include in this time because it is definitely something that all of your children can do together, and it's something that all of your children are going to enjoy. So let me show you some ways that we do include art in our morning basket. All right, so the first way that we include art in our morning basket time to be able to include it in our homeschool day is through using art curriculum. There are many different curriculum that are out there to use for art. There are courses that are taught by a teacher online, and so your children can sit and watch and be instructed on how to draw. And there are just a variety of different kinds of online curriculum. I want to share one that we have really enjoyed lately, and that is Art History Kids. It is just such an in-depth curriculum that just covers it all. And basically all we need to supply is the materials that we're using for the art, which is also material that is easily found in your house. There is nothing that we have to go and buy specially. It's mostly, markers or paints or, cardstock or copy paper, just things that I pretty much have around the house anyway, especially since we love art so much. We just have this around our house anyway. So, there may be one or two things if you aren't doing much art in your home that maybe you need to buy, but it's all very inexpensive and easily found pretty much at any store. And so that's one thing I really like about this curriculum is that there's nothing, you don't have to go hunting to specialty stores to be able to find this. So basically, what is the curriculum? Well, it's called the Studio, and it is a yearly membership. There may also be a monthly membership, but it is a membership that you get each month. You get a weekly PDF that you can either use on your computer if you don't want to, spend any ink or, spend time printing it off or can't print it off, or you can just print it off like I have here. And so each week, there's a PDF that tells you everything that you need to know about the artist or the topic that you're studying that month. So like some months, like this was our January, we studied a special artist. And then when we did December, it was several artists, but it was all about the same topic of snowy landscapes. And so we were able to compare and contrast different snowy landscapes from different artists who also were in different time periods. And then here we just did just this artist all month. So we really got to dive in deep and really appreciate all of, his art. And so it's just really fun that it's constantly changing each month as well. And so, like I was saying, each week you receive one of these that you can print off or just watch look at online. And it has everything you need to talk to your kids, what you can exactly say to them, questions you can ask them. It gives you the background about the artist. So like here, this is one of the earlier weeks. So in the beginning of the month is the time where you really kind of look at some of the pieces of art and the artists. And you can see this is several pages of, parody in art, because this artist did a lot of pop art and used a comic book style. And, just discovering more about the art and the different techniques used. And then later on in the month, then we looked beyond the paintings, where we looked at connecting art with math and literature. And, sometimes it's other subjects as well also. And we looked at, creating our own things. We looked at different elements of art. And then at the end of each week, now it's your turn. And so you can see here is one of my son's pieces that he did based on this, now it's your turn. And the pieces of art, the kids are not told what they should do. They are given, ideas about what they can do and how they could study the art to figure out something they can do. And then they do it on their own. And so one week, and there's something each week that they can do. So one week, my son did a picture that had one of the words, because that was something that the artist was known for. And then another week was using different painting techniques, because the artist used like a dot style to make it look like comic books. And so the kids were encouraged to do that as well. And then another week they did a still life. And so they chose some fruit or vegetables. And one son put it on a plate. Another had an apple getting cut with a knife. And so then they drew that kind of based in the artist's style of using just a few colors. It is amazing what this pulls out of my kids. I absolutely love this curriculum. I will leave a link below. You can also get a month trial of this, so you can try it out for yourself and see how you like it. So it's definitely something, if you don't already have an art curriculum, that you will probably really enjoy. So you should definitely check that out. So again, using an online art curriculum is one way that you can appreciate art and include it into your homeschool. Another way is by including art in your other subjects. Now, I mentioned that we like to put ours in a morning basket, and one of the other items that we do put in our morning basket is a nature study. And so I have found ways to combine nature and art and to, be able to enjoy both of them in our morning time. So one way we do that is through our nature journals. And there are a few ways we do this. At least once a week, I like to try to get outside with the kids and do a nature walk. Often they'll bring along their nature journals so they can sketch what they see, or they may just write down what they see, but to include the art, I do encourage them to draw also what they see. And usually that's just a sketch with a pencil outside, because it's much easier, especially in the wintertime. It's much easier to just bring a pencil and the notebook. And then when they get back inside, they can spend time adding color and more detail. So, it's not something that has to be some big involved process. I am all about easy. So anything that is easy is perfect. So with our nature journals, we do the nature walk sometime. And then throughout the week, I also read books to them about whatever our nature topic is that day. So we've done deer, and we've done birds and clouds and owls, just a lot of different, and snow, a lot of different ideas. And so what I do is I will read the book, and then maybe during the book while I'm reading it, or afterwards, or later in the day, they will add to their nature journals what they've learned, maybe just some information that they thought was important about the topic, and they can illustrate it as well. And so I just wanted to share with you. And they just, they can use anything. They don't have to use special, watercolors, or if they want to, they can. But usually we're just using some crayons or colored pencils or markers, just, something very easy again. So just some of the ideas of some things they've done. This is one of my son's books. And when we did deer, he wanted to draw a deer. He really enjoyed looking at the pictures in the books that we had. And so he drew one of the deer that he saw in the book. And then he wrote a little bit about it there, about how they lose their antlers. He thought that was very interesting. Then in the winter, we did a bird study, and we looked at how many different birds came to our bird feeder. And then a few times a day during an entire week, they would sit and watch and see how many birds came and tally them. And so then after that, he drew the anatomy of a bird. he drew a bird, and then he labeled the different anatomy of it. So he has the numbers here, and then on the next page, he wrote down what that corresponded to. And then a final one I want to show you is here when we did owls. We can't really observe owls outside, and so I read them several books on owls. And while we were doing that, he really enjoyed the picture on the cover of one. And so he went ahead and just drew his interpretation of the picture, and then put down something that he thought was interesting about owls. So again, very simple, but a nice way to combine art with nature, and just another way of showing how wonderful art can be by including it in your homeschool. Another way to include art in your homeschool, which also fits wonderfully during your morning basket time, is to read about the artists in different books. Now, this series here, the Getting to Know the World's Greatest Artists, you can tell we really enjoy it. We have a lot of the books. They are so perfect for kids. My kids get a kick out of these stories, and they learn so much about the artists. So here in this book about Picasso, you can see it's kind of a cartoon, pictures through some of it, and they have little captions, and it tells you about the book or about the artist as you read. But then it also includes some of the artist's works. So it's just a very nice way to introduce the artist, and it's short enough, you probably could read it in one sitting if your kids really wanted to and, can sit through that. I've also just read a little bit at a time because I like to kind of slowly go through an artist and their work and let the kids kind of, take their time to digest what they're hearing about the artist. And so, just reading a few pages of this book or any of those books is a great way to do that. And then there are also books. Lawrence Anhalt is wonderful with the books he has about the artists. I really enjoy the style he uses to write and just, what he shares about the artist. This is a lovely story about how he came to do this sculpture. And my boys, even though this is a story about a ballet dancer, my boys loved this story. And I believe, again, that this was one that we spent a couple days reading because it is on the longer side. But the illustrations are wonderful, and it's just a wonderful story. So we read about Degas, we've read about Van Gogh and Leonardo da Vinci. So, lots of fun books that you can find about artists. And it's another great way to share art with your children as they get to know, the artist as a person. Another great way to include art in your homeschool day that does not necessarily have to be during a morning basket, and really none of these ideas that I'm sharing have to be in a morning basket. I'm just sharing that as an idea of a way to make sure it gets done each day and a way to include all of your children. So for this idea, it's just to include or to have easy access to supplies. Don't box up your art materials and keep them on a high shelf where your kids can't ever reach them. Now, obviously, if you have, a 2-year-old who's going to chalk pastel your walls, you may want to keep them out of their reach. But for your, elementary age, middle school, and so on, leave these supplies out where they know where they are. Encourage them to use them. These are just some of the things that we've used art for. Now, this was actually with an online class that we did on chalk pastel. But, sometimes I'll just leave the chalk pastels out on the table with some paper, and the kids will just sit and draw something. I don't, give them any kind of instruction on what they're supposed to do. And, even if they're not in the mood, then they're not in the mood that day, and, maybe they don't do the art. But the invitation is there. And so, get different supplies. Kids love chalk pastels. They're so fun to draw with, and they can use their fingers to smudge it, and it's wonderful, and it's so easy to clean up. You just use baby wipes or a paper towel. So, it's messy for the kids, but it's not a horrible cleanup for the mom. Watercolors. I know I'm not a super big fan of paints because we worry about carpet and, the paint falling on it, but watercolors are very easy to clean, and, it's not a very large mess. You don't have to get special paper. You could try to use cardstock. Using actual paper is better, but if cost is prohibitive to be able to do that, then just use what you have. But watercolors are really, really fun. My kids absolutely love watercolors. Here's something that we did with clay. This was for an owl study that we did. But the kids used an air dry clay to make the owls, and then I had them use their watercolors to paint them. And, so they love using art. And so have those materials out for them. Get some special ones that maybe they don't have. Just lay out your crayons and your colored pencils. And, it doesn't have to be super expensive or super involved. Again, easy. If something is easy, you're probably likely to continue it. So, make it as easy on yourself as possible, but still encourage your children to appreciate art by leaving, actually having it for them to do. Another way that you can include art in your homeschool day is by strewing different supplies and books. Now, if you're not familiar with that term, what it means is that you basically set up an invitation to play. And so, or, to create art. So what you do is, maybe put out an art book and some paper and colored pencils, or maybe you put out how to watercolor and some watercolor paints and some paper, just a picture with some chalk pastels and some paper. So just some ways to encourage your children to kind of, create their own art where you have no expectations of what they're doing. You are just setting up the invitation for them. Kind of like when I said about having these supplies available for them. This is another way to do that, and, kind of maybe to kind of guide them to a general, something they can do, but you're not expecting, there is no expectation set with that. You're not assigning any work for them. It's just something they can do if they want to. And honestly, you leave that on the table, the kids are going to get into it and see what it's about and create something. That's what happens in my family. Anytime they see something set up, they want to look through it. They're inquisitive. They want to see, what is this? What is this about? And so, the Draw Right Now books are really great for that. If you're not familiar with those, they have different pictures on how to draw step by step, how to draw something. They have a completed picture, and then they even have some copy work below that you could, maybe give your kids some lined paper to do that as well, and they can illustrate it. So that's a way to even add in handwriting with the art. So these are really good books, and there are 8 of them. So, lots of different topics that they can draw in there. And then these are really good books. We've done some classes with Ralph Masiello online, and the kids just really enjoy the style he has of teaching kids about art, and that, it doesn't have to be perfect, and that, he himself even makes mistakes, and he makes the mistakes into something fun. And so it really just makes them, curious and wanting to draw. And again, his books have a step-by-step how to draw each part so the kids can take their time and, really just take as long as they need to get something done. And then it has his final drawing in there so they can see what that is. And he has several books. These are just a couple of them. And then along with the Draw Right Now, that it's on a similar kind of thing with that, is the Draw and Write Through History. And so these are set from different time periods We have Greece and Rome, creation. They have the time of Napoleon, just, just different parts of different periods of time throughout history. And inside the books, again, like a lot of the other ones, they have a step-by-step how to draw it with the final piece in there. And now these are, these are probably not for your preschooler or your kindergartner. These are definitely more involved. And so these would be perfect for upper elementary, middle school, even high schoolers who really like to draw would probably enjoy doing this as well. You'll notice the copy work is in cursive. So definitely something that is for older children, but something that they will really enjoy, especially if they enjoyed the Draw Right Now books when they were younger. I would definitely think that this is more for lower elementary, maybe even into some upper elementary, but by the time middle school, that might be when you move to the Draw and Write books, if you haven't yet. So just lots of ideas to just set out for your children to create on their own. So those are all ideas of different ways that you can incorporate art into your homeschool day. You can do one of them, you can do all of them. Maybe not all on the same day, but there are so many ways that you can include art in your homeschool. And I hope you noticed how easy they were as well. This does not have to be something time consuming and difficult. Again, the easier the better. One thing I do want to mention though, is that, do art yourself. We love to sit and do watercolor together. And I love doing the chalk pastels with them as well. And so by sitting with your kids and doing the art with them, or them seeing you do it, on your own, that's going to show them as well that art is something important and something that should be special and included in their day. And so when you lead by example, that's also another way to encourage your children to learn about and appreciate and create their own art as well. So thank you for watching. Happy homeschooling.